Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to
We'll
hit
have some laugh.
record. All right, you guys. My next guest on our professional development podcast, we go way back, 1995. In fact, Dr. Castle was in the athletic training room as one of our athletic trainers, our staff college athletic trainers, and you taught me the first thing I learned in undergrad, which was Herodotus of Megara was the first considered athletic trainer back in the Greek
I don't even remember.
Olympic.
I don't even remember that.
Uh, you
So
you
yeah,
shouldn't because you were
yeah,
working from
that was a
4
history.
a.m.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
7 p.m. Bless your heart,
yeah.
you were exhausted, but you still met with us, the first
Oh yeah, we
first year
had fun
athletic
doing
trainer.
that. Yeah, that was. I think that was like a. I don't know, it's whatever the 230s or something like that, or I don't know, or 330. The 330
Exactly,
class. I don't remember which one it was.
exactly,
I taught a bunch and worked a lot, but had
exactly.
fun doing it.
So we go way back, and Dr. Castle, when his stay at back then it was USL was over, he
It's still
graduated from Ella,
USL.
still USL.
It's always
I
it'll
agree with
yeah
you. I
yeah
agree with you. But he was you did your undergraduate at LSU.
yeah
You're a proud alumnus of St. Joseph, Louisiana,
yeah.
right?
That's right.
And after USL, your years working in the athletic training program, you went to Southern Miss, right, for your master's and your doctorate.
Well, I went back. I had my master's and I worked as assistant athletic trainer before, and then I was a year at Lake Charles Memorial,
Oh,
and then I
great,
came to
great.
USL, and then I went back and got my PhD at
Gotcha,
Southern
gotcha,
Miss.
gotcha. Because you
Yeah.
graduated from LSU in 1990, right? So that would
Yes.
explain
Yep.
the difference. And then at Southern
Yeah.
Mississippi, you got your doctorate, and then you went to run the program at LSU. Is that correct?
Actually went to University of West Florida.
Outstanding.
Started that program or got that program getting up and running, and then opportunity to come back to LSU,
Gotcha,
and
gotcha,
so I was here for 20 years, and
gotcha.
I retired from there or put new tires on to
Yeah,
my and moved and just moved full time into my company. I've had it for
yeah.
12 plus years now, but moved
Uh,
that into my full time role. So
so Dr. Castle being here checks off a lot of boxes. Some of my students requested an athletic trainer for professional development. Dr. Castle is in 3 Hall of Fames, including the National Athletic Training Hall of Fame. And I know you're a humble guy, but that's a big deal in our.
yeah,
I remember Jim's Hall of Fame induction, and that's really where I fell in love with Southern Mississippi, the family
yeah,
atmosphere, and just wanting to be a part of that family.
yeah.
But also you have stops in college working as a college athletic trainer, then obviously the academic stance. So you really have a lot of variable, and you work for the Olympics and the Boston Marathon. Like there's just so much
Yeah.
experience you bring. So the first thing I'd like to talk about, and we can let the conversation go however we want to, but all the different levels you've been in, when did professional development specifically, the networking, the taking it serious, when did that first get into your head? Like, I really need to start taking professional development and networking more, not say more serious, but when did it become apparent in your journey?
It is wow. That's a kind of makes me go back. A great question to look at is you know, when I first started as a student, I remember. I mean, one of the things that I recall one of the athletic trainers here at LSU. I can remember exactly where it was, and this was 35, 30 something years ago. John Purdy. We were riding up
Mm,
on campus from the stadium. We were going up, I think, the Student Health Center, and I was about ready to finish. I was finishing up that summer, and I was in the passenger side, and he was talking about what we were doing. We left the athletic training room and we're going up there on campus. And he just says, Purdy tells me, he says, well, what are you going to do? He said, well, two things. One is you need to, and he's like, you've got to continually evolve and and also I was doing I got the bug to go to some meetings and stuff like that
hmm
early on. So, like I said, in the year I graduated, I went to our state athletic training association meeting, and I got to see people. I'm like, wow, these folks are really, the Jim Andrews was there, so some other
Yeah.
ones, like wow, and they're very passionate and they're way ahead of what I'm doing, and they're engaging us in developing learning. You learn stuff, but it's not even networking, it's relationship building, and I
Mm.
don't like that. I really that's just me personally. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
like that word. I like the word because I have to use a computer network, or I'm business, you use it. it's really about relationship building and but learning. And over the years I've gone to meeting, I know you've done meetings as well, is so much I can go into a room and learn something and get something, but it's in between those rooms
Mm,
where I find that people have this is where you're discussing problems you have and
hmm
opportunities and learn just a little nitpicking on things like
hmm
that. So
you pattern
you know,
recognize, or you start to see like
yeah,
reoccurrences. And
yeah.
I also want to, I love that point. I never thought about it before. Networking almost seems, I don't say disingenuous, but it's like you're punching in and it's not organic, as opposed to relationship building seems to infer more organic, genuine interest between professionals.
Look, I can tell you, it's not even about like if I know someone told me this a long time ago and it made a lot of sense. It's like, I've been involved, you get involved on committees and be engaged in whatever you do. I was
Hmm
taught that, they get involved. That's something Jim Gillespie gave me, Southern Miss. He's like, going to these meetings. I didn't really have I was a grad assistant. He brought me
Yeah.
there and okay, you're going to be an instructor and doing this. And you're starting to, but what ends up happening is I got to sit in on meetings early on with like we go to student CETA, the District 9 Athletic Training Student Symposium, and I'm a graduate assistant. I've heard these people's names before, and I'd go in. They have a social room like we're just instructors, and I'd sit there and I would just listen. I start listening. They get to know who I was. I kind of sat back and I'm like very timid about it, and you're hearing stuff that's just on a whole nother like these are former presidents of NATA, other and or like that have been Bobby Barton or Sue Stanley Green, who is at who other folks who just they're moving and shaking stuff, and it's just you're getting to meet people. And but they also, and I started realizing, hey, they start to you build relationships, and it's not about, I know so and so. It is, wow,
Yes.
they're really good people. And
Yes.
and my point is that if you get involved, like there's two things that you learn to being involved, whether you work or other setting as well. One is you want to have fun doing what you're doing. Know that there's times you don't. There's things are not fun. I mean, just things I don't like to do, but I have to do them. And then number two is work with really work with great people and work with folks that are fun to be around. And they're just you can be in a grind, and this, Brian, even when we were there, we had a grind. And granted, we even back then when you were a student, we had fun. We would have fun doing it, and
Yeah.
laugh. We
Yeah.
knew there are times we get kind of fired up on stuff,
Of
but at the end of
course.
the day, you have fun doing it.
But I'll
And
give you an
that's a
example, like us laughing at ourselves when we would flood the water area because they didn't build a drain.
yes, and I was mad.
I don't blame you.
Not
I
so
don't
much as
blame you.
Forrest would be mad. He'd get me, but think about that. And I think to say that is that it's about working with, you get on committees and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't want to work with, there are folks I don't want to work with. And that that gets around pretty fast. No matter how good you
Yes.
think you are, if a person's not a good person,
Yes.
you can only so many times you can run into the brick wall. And
Yes.
I like to, I grew up on a farm, and I appreciate you saying that from St. Joseph, raising cattle is, and this phrase is, if you're going to be stupid, you better be tough. And and that's just about, listen to people. You don't have to do it by yourself. Don't do it by yourself. There's a point where you can do some things by yourself, but a lot of times starting out, you have to understand. I know, oh boy, I can go on and on about stuff like this. And I
It's
did
all
some
right.
stuff. I'm gonna get my, I'm gonna do it. I want to do it. I'm young and I want to do it myself.
Yeah.
And you get
Yeah.
that, but guess what? I wasn't getting a job or
Yeah.
doing something else. I'm like, I just need to just ask for help. And we
Yes.
all ask for help. I mean, look, this is something that is, I'm a firm believer, and it's taken me a long time to get to this, get to the point, but or at least in my career, I really
Yes.
appreciate this is that when I meet someone, when I go to a meeting and now, like I go to the student meeting, I just want to meet somebody younger or otherwise. I'm making a friend. It doesn't matter who it is. But I also take the approach that someone, you have a door and someone is always open a door for somebody when you can.
Sure.
It's just being polite. Number two is you don't know that person, that door is swinging out towards you and they're trying to get through that door and they may be
Hmm.
having a hard time getting through that door.
Yeah.
That's a literal, take that literally or however you want to.
Yeah.
Or they're going through that door, but they really need that door closed. They
Yes.
don't need to go through this door too fast or too. And then also, if you're trying to pull to open a door is going to have resistance.
Yeah.
Some doors are harder than others, and just take that as understand that some doors are harder to open.
Yeah.
And that's just gets into whole
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
things as well, and which is sometimes unfortunate. Sometimes it is it's but recognize that everybody
Yes.
has a door to open, and this is like for me that is there are doors I'm trying to open and doors I'm trying to keep closed
Yeah.
and doors that I'm trying to close. I'm working on closing, and that's both sides of that door, and that's just evolving for
Yeah.
anyone. And that's personal, it's professional, it's emotional, whatever that may be. And I just try, I really, and just appreciate that.
Yeah.
And if you can open a door for somebody, then open the door. Because I've had so many doors open for me, I can't even begin. I mean, just professionally, personally, just even I would say just look around somebody or you don't know and just call them
Yeah.
and just say, hey, how's it going? I mean, it may be the wildest thing you might think of, but just call somebody.
Yeah.
You haven't talked to them in a while, just talk to them because
Stay connected.
they may need to hear from you. Look,
Wow.
I did that this summer. I had a former student who, the crazy thing was I woke up and this student was one of my earlier students had in a dream, and it wasn't anything. It was just like, okay, I woke up and I'm like, I've got to call her. I've got to call her. And this was like last year. Called her. She was on vacation with her family. And I'm like, oh, you're like in England or something like that. I'm like, well, we'll call some other time. Couple months passed by, and I saw her this past summer at NATA, and I just told her, I said, just that, and I had a chance to talk to her in person. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
she carried a lot of weight on stuff. She thought she was just going through school and just had a lot of stuff knocks in life, and I think she thought that. I'm like, no, you're incredibly successful. I'm so proud of what you've done. And I just had to tell her that. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm just see the stuff that she does, and she shakes that off. And
Yeah.
it was just something that I needed to get off my. I just felt
Yeah.
that God was speaking to me. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to do this. I'm so glad I had this conversation with her. But my point is to you all is just to their time. Just if someone you know just find somebody and just, hey, how's it going? If anything else, nothing, just to say, you talk to somebody, a friend in a while. So
Yeah.
that's,
And
yeah,
it makes us it's validating for them and it's validating for us. Like I always feel good when randomly like when I messaged you to congratulate you, for the
yeah,
NATA. We hadn't necessarily talked in a while, but we'll always
yeah.
be connected through our, me
Oh, yeah.
working
And we
for
still
you.
do
So
every now and then. I mean,
oh
that's,
yeah, yeah,
it's not ever
absolutely.
things
I,
like
I
that.
want to
So,
I want a quick call back because the sound kind of cut off just for a second. You said that Purdy taught you to go to grad school. And what was the other thing he emphasized to you when y'all were riding around on those carts? I
well,
just want
it
to make sure
wasn't,
we got it.
he didn't say, taught me, like, he just said, look, you need to go to grad school.
Oh,
You
gotcha,
need to
gotcha,
go,
gotcha.
just go get educated. Now, knowing that I got the bug and going and, I'm like, really? And like, because he saw the
Gotcha.
profession
Yes,
as it's evolving. It was
it's
only
evolving.
at the time, like, at the time it was, I'd probably say demographically, probably 10% of our profession was female. And
Hmm.
then maybe even a lesser number, like, I mean, a little bit higher number, maybe 30-40% had
Hmm.
a master's degree. And it's like, he's like, it's going to continue to evolve. You need to continue
Wow.
your education.
He had the
And
foresight.
I don't know why, other than I think it was like, this is this job, they're going to start to move more to this. So now
Uh-huh.
it's, I not realizing that I would enjoy it a lot and
Yeah.
decide to go back, and my path at Southern Miss led me to, I like teaching and or enjoyed that part, and went back and got my doctorate, and and
Was
went to be a program director.
was there different, because I'm going to give a quick story, but the story is to segue into what I'm saying is that Charlie Rosansky, but
Oh
he was
yeah,
at NC
yeah,
State, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So when I finished at
And
USL,
so I had the opportunity to work with him on a committee.
what
So
a great,
this
I
was
mean,
all, yeah,
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 super,
I
yeah. He
I
came in.
mean, great.
He was an advisor member. I want to say on the it was the the Katie, I think early on. He did something. I
Yeah,
can't remember what it
like
was, but he was a representative. I got to meet with him, and
so
so
he
your
did
name
his
would come up.
master's here. He did his master's at USL.
Yeah,
Massachusetts guy
yeah.
was down here, and so I went up there for a year because I wasn't certified yet. And one of the things I learned was the importance when you get invited to a lunch with whoever, even if you're a low person on the totem pole, you
Yeah,
go to that lunch. One, it's probably going to be comped. Someone's going to pick up the bill. But
yeah.
to your point, the conversations and it's not just about work, work, work. That's where you can really develop those relationships as a young up and coming professional. So if there's ever you're at these meetings and they say, "Hey, does anybody want to go to lunch?" The answer has to be yes,
Look,
because
look, I'm
it's a
doing
cheat
that. This,
code.
I'm doing that. It's funny you asked it. You must be in my brain or something, and it's kind of scary because I'm actually doing that this week. So I'm on a call with my company does, we do continuing education courses. We do, I mean, in-person courses. We have this one particular course called a pit crew emergency care course. We have folks that are, we have corporate sponsorships and do some other stuff as well, and it's just locking in one to another by chance. And I'm on a call, and they're not this one company. It's a huge company. They're not a large. They're not a partner with us yet. But I'm on the call by way of someone else, another company we do work with, and they were like, "Well," I said, are we going? Are you going to the GLADA meeting, which is this week up in Chicago?" And I'm like, well, no. And I said, we haven't thought much about it. And realizing right there on the spot in the phone call, I'm like, well, yeah, you ought to consider. I'm like, okay, we're going to do that. Now, I'm granted, I don't need to spend the money going on a trip, but Ronnie and I are heading up Thursday, and we're spending on Thursday. The exhibit stuff is on Friday. But I'm like, we've got to get in front of people. We're going to be an exhibitor, even though we're not there. But the goal is, hey, it's like this company, and they happen to be like a the top sponsor. They're like 3 miles. Well, okay,
Uh-huh.
good. So I'm like, yeah, I need to go. We're going to go to this, whether and
So
it's just building relationships.
it seemed like the door was being offered open and you needed to take
Yeah,
advantage
and
of
and, and,
their
and so here's the thing. Not even that, but I'm like, so I called, I signed the registration, and like, yeah, we got word because this company, and they're like, oh yeah, they asked us to come up, and they're like, well, yeah, I think we maybe can put y'all next to them. I'm like, that would be great, even though we're not officially. And a lot
uh-huh.
of this stuff is, look, when I say a sponsorship, I don't mean there's not even exchange of money. It is some things we do relationship wise. It's
Uh-huh.
about working to build that relationship because it'll happen in time. I don't, we haven't, I sent something to him not long ago. It was like, okay, it's just, there's a money figure, but it's nothing I'm doing is around money. And even from my business standpoint, we need to make money. I'm like, no, money will come.
Money will come.
It's just, and
Sure.
we're doing things with them that they are an 800-pound gorilla. And I'm
Yeah.
like, here, we just want to tap in to
Yeah.
that. And that's what we do. We got, I've got our
Yeah.
podcast and other stuff is
But
we just want you to, hey, will you let us from, you're going to help us in kind and other stuff as well. Has nothing to do with money,
yeah.
but it opens doors.
But there's a
And
price to the word trust. And when you develop
yeah.
trust, that is priceless. I mean,
And so,
it's
hey, look, we started doing this, and they're like, well, how much did it cost? Nothing. They're like, what? And from the marketing folks, they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, it didn't cost anything. Well, in time. So
yes.
look, what's ended up happening with one company, it's probably what they have provided to us in event services that they brought us to go out to cover events, plus giving us shirts and probably close to
Yeah.
20,000. And we've never asked for that. We've like,
Yeah.
okay, what do you
Well,
want? Shirts? Okay. Yeah.
for our students, why do you think businesses give out free samples? Because you want them to say, wow, it's customer acquisition.
So
They,
yeah, but understand though, there's a strong. You have to have a strong. Some companies do this and that, but from a medical device standpoint, it's a lot of. I mean, there's very hard lines within that. So we
gotcha.
walk a very
Gotcha.
hard line in terms of
It's a
what you can do.
metaphor. Gotcha.
No, no, no. I'm being
Literal.
there's. I mean, this is if you're a healthcare provider, you have to work under certain. We
Gotcha.
just can't
Gotcha.
say
Gotcha. Gotcha.
I hear this
Gotcha.
thing of I want to get an NIL deal. I heard
Yeah.
athlete
Yeah.
training. So why can't I'm
Yeah.
like it doesn't work that way. You have
Yeah.
licensure. You have to
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
There's some other things
In
to
other
keep in
words, you
mind. So
can't play by house monopoly rules. There are the rules, and you have to play within the confines of that game's rules.
yeah, like
Right.
I'll talk about these companies, but I don't. But when it comes time to our courses and stuff like that,
Yes.
it is boom. Like you're not even in the room. It's
Yes.
literally they're there. We don't promote them. Even our continuing
Yes.
education. It's just some. You have to eliminate bias. And even when we
Yes.
talk about things in some of these topics, I'm talking about. I may say this. If they, for
Yeah.
example, I'm talking about AEDs. I'll talk about Avive, but I'm also talking about Philips and Med
Yes.
because I have to maintain like
Yes.
you have to be very clear about that and not trying to persuade someone that
Yes.
you get into a lot of, it could be
Yes.
a slippery slope there.
But I
So,
also think people respect that. In other words, well, if he's doing that for that, he'll do that for everything else. And it sets your the word that I'm searching for, that you are professional. It's almost kind of
yeah.
like if somebody's talking about somebody else in front of you, you're like, well, I wonder what they're saying about me when I'm not when I'm not
No,
around.
yeah, they probably say a lot about me, so I don't worry too about. I've got to ignore that after a while. So,
Ray, I want to ask, well, I'd like to do a little comparing and contrasting, and I know it's an open-ended question,
yeah,
but I just you're in a such unique position to talk about it. Similarities and differences in professional development, relationship building from athletic training, literal working, high school, college. So you're having to juggle the coach, the equipment staff, the players, all the stuff you do versus professional development, relationship building in an academic stance where you're now the teacher and coordinating the curriculum. Maybe there are some similarities, maybe there are some differences. And then for you being in being in the business side of it too, what are some similarities with all levels? And then after that, we'll talk about some differences in the relationship building.
I'm gonna put it like this:
Mm-hmm.
same trailer, different park. So, and I had a conversation with somebody not long about this. Look, when I ran an athletic training degree program, it is a business. Now, people don't think of it as, oh, I have a business. I'm like, no, you have human resources, you have physical resources, you have to allocate those resources. There's time, there's money, there's or all those things in the academic side. Now, I may not see that. I don't see that money coming through, but everything has a budget, and
Yes.
you have to fit within that. You move over to a high school, it's the same. Whether you are an athletic director or you're in marketing, you have to have time. You punch off those areas. It's here. You go to what I do as a business. I'm having it looks differently, but it's all the same. You have opportunities, you have threats, you allow,
Wow.
you the biggest threat to my company is me. And I say that. I mean, because I am if I get washed down in minutia of stuff, I can't do other things to do. And it's just a resource. I can only do so much
Yeah.
during that time. So
Yeah.
like right now, we're in the process of doing a big transition from like to run my company right now. It requires not require at least how we do our things.
Mm-hmm.
About 16 different platforms.
Mm.
Great, from social media to doing the podcast, take 2 or 3. Not to,
Mm-hmm.
now that doesn't even include the 16 podcast channels we're in.
Yeah.
So now you're up to about 30. So now automation as well. We're in the process right now of moving. Started about 2 weeks ago, which will take about 2 months to move everything. Majority of those, we're going to get rid of that. We're going to save money, but we're also going to put that into one platform.
Uh-huh.
And it is all about data and being able to see that data and make those things move and collect.
Yeah.
You need to be able to see data, and we can't see data easily. So you spend more time trying to figure out, because nothing talks. Everybody wants things to silo. So we're moving into a system where our courses to our other stuff, and even that this one platform has an online module, like a learning module, like we
Uh-huh.
have. It's not like that per se. They have one that's outside of it, but it has to marry back in. So it does flow. So it'll allow us to do more streamlined
Yeah.
decisions. That is, in this system even has
And
AI within the app, as
yeah.
well as an overarching AI
Yeah.
that we can use. So I'm basically building
Yeah.
a COO. The platform will become I'll have a COO. I have that already, but I have a COO that's in the system. So then we're focusing a lot on. We had a meeting last week, and a planning meeting, and we're working with a consulting group. They're kind of coming through, and they asked me, well, where do you see your company and in the future? And I'm like, I see the company as not just for myself,
Mm-hmm.
as the owner, the founder, the
Mm-hmm.
CEO, and dog catcher, and everybody in between. Is that um, I see this as where I want to take this, not just for myself, but also for everybody who works with us in our company. Is a about moving from where we're grinding it,
Uh-huh.
is doing different stuff. Is going to move it to about 50 to 60% of the time we're actually working, and think of a work week.
Yeah.
We're just working 50 to 60 hours a week, and that's just
Grinding.
based on no, just work. Just
Yeah.
about 50%. And you think about a 40-hour work, 5 days a week, eight
Yeah.
hours a day. That's just 3 days. Okay. And so what are we doing with the other, you know, 2 days? About a day or day and a half is spent. We spent, or about, think about that, about 3.5 days out of the week. We're going to spend on work, because we have to executing what we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
execution side, making sure we're doing things, just doing day to day stuff. Then the other 20%, say 25%, we want to be able to effectively plan and work through and analyze and have that time. And then as we get better, those two numbers are going to shrink down. So then we can spend more time on personal and professional development.
Mm.
And that has nothing to do with it has nothing to do with our company. It has just everything about personal. If I want to learn how to play the recorder,
Yeah.
or learn how to learn how to paint better, or do
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
just go do that. I mean,
Yeah.
we're in the process of trying to move, and we're eventually going to, we're moving. So I've already told my wife, I said, look, I haven't done this. I have a big enough room. I'm out of a bedroom right now. I'll have a podcast studio, but I'm also going to I'm getting a piano.
Yeah.
And she's like, what? And it's like, yeah, I said, I played it years ago and I haven't done it. I need to do that. And I'm like, I'm going to do that. So I'll probably be horrible at it, but I can still I played
There,
it years ago when I was growing up, but it's just something different. Or doing, whether somebody people fishing, if you
yeah.
find your passion, and your passion bleeds over into other stuff. So
For the students, there's value in learning how to do new things. It gets transferred. Like, your brain is plastic, and you can kind of
yeah,
reconnect things. And so, learning new things, regardless of if it's in your work or not, will help you get better at learning new things at
yeah.
work. Um,
But
oh,
also but I'm also at a transition point. I mean,
yes,
I'll eventually be moving from I'm 59 and a half and
yeah,
then some, but I want to work because I want to
yeah,
work.
Yes.
And if they go, oh, 65, well, there's no such thing as, I don't subscribe to that.
Yeah.
But I want to do the things. I want to continue to do them.
Yeah.
I need to still work. Don't get me wrong. I still need to work. And
Ray, one of your callbacks from one of your first points is all of these different things you have to do. It's impossible to do it by yourself. Like so, a young professional who thinks they have to, how sometimes, there were certain people that we worked with that almost felt they had their hands in too many things, and you dilute and you have to give responsibility. You have to let other people learn how to take leadership roles, right? And so
well, it
like,
does. I mean, I'm doing that now. Even I mean,
yeah, yeah,
I'm in the minutia of my job right now. And I told my wife, I'm like, look, I'm just telling you, like the first when I had my company for 12 years, and we were doing events here and there, and they're really just doing some side hustle. It's
uh-huh,
on the side. I never thought of it being the when I decided my decision to retire came through in about a 3-month time period. I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. Other things were picking up business wise, but other things were just triggering, came in
yeah,
and doing that. And I'm doing now. I'm doing the stuff I love. Emergency. I love everything related to emergency medicine, like sports emergency care. So somebody asked me, I can do rehab. I'll do this. I can do this. I taught it. I did. I practiced it. I practiced it. I know, shoulder
yeah,
rehab, post surgery, whatever. But when it comes to my company, I will do that as part of what I'm doing on the service side. But I'm not talking about injury rehab
yeah,
on a podcast on one of my podcast shows, nor is it going to be in one of my courses. Like why? Because that's not what we do.
yeah,
This is what we do, and if it's not within these two areas right here,
yeah.
then it's just no. It's noise. I mean, it's
That's your
other stuff,
lane. This is
and
your
you have
lane.
so much so that we like I retired in August of 22, and I started trying to figure out what the company is going to do. Dude, that's middle of late 22 to or mid, say third and fourth quarter of 22, all of 23. Started doing online courses. Well, I knew we are going to do some in-person, training stuff. I do that already, and do some continuing education stuff. And then last year, we're trying to refine this. There's one course we're doing, and then moved into the podcast and doing that. So now our focus, our end of the year meeting, Ronnie and I had is okay. These are things we have to have our goals, objectives, and what things that we have to accomplish to grow this company, and that is really built on, we figured out what we were going to do.
Uh-huh.
We figured out what not to do last year, and there's some things we did and things not do. And now this year, this is what we're doing,
Yeah. And
and we're
that's
doing it.
Action
So,
Medical Consultants.
Action Medicine Consultants or Action Medco,
Action Medical.
actionmed.co.
Gotcha.
So we do that, and now like we brought on a strategic communications manager. That person, like Ronnie Harper, he retired from Dutchtown High School, but he does his company, but also he's now coming on board as a partner with me and then my company. So we have that from our retirement side. We've got
Yeah.
benefits from our working wise, whatever. So, but we've agreed the first person we're going to hire is a full time employee will be the strategic communications
Wow.
manager,
Wow.
and we brought somebody on. It's contract right now,
Hmm.
but which I'm excited. I can say, Trish is doing phenomenal. Started in the last couple of weeks,
Hmm.
and she was head of digital marketing and brand
Yeah.
development for Community Coffee for years,
Wow.
and so she went out on her own. I'm like, well, she wants to be a part of what we're doing. I'm like, this is pretty awesome,
Yeah.
and she brings a very different perspective, and I'm excited. It's
Yeah.
just, I get to, that's where you have to have a clear vision of where you want to go, but you have to keep plugging at it
Yeah.
very slowly, and it doesn't happen overnight. And it just takes time. You have to, a lot of people don't do things. And I'll say this, I've had things that were um, successful failures because I
Yeah.
did not have the I'm going to say the grit.
Yeah.
I didn't have the tools or the grit for sustainability, good ideas, whatever, but
Yeah.
whatever
You
it may
win and you
be,
learn.
it just happened, so over
Yeah.
that. And some of my, but it's made me, I understand now what my the how to really I'm staying to the grind and I'm
Yeah.
enjoying it. I
How
don't,
how how much of an influence did your work at the Olympics and the marathons, that all the marathons you've done and that event planning, how much, or were you always interested in it and that was just another avenue to do what you love? Or did you do that and said, wow, this is a real niche that I think I could potentially fill? Are those connected in any way?
Um, they're connected from a standpoint of like working these different events. Like
Hmm.
it's just fun to work. You get to meet people, and I did
Yeah.
that for some other stuff I got paid for, but some I got
Uh-huh.
to just go. I got to have fun. I was just taught that. I go do the Olympic. I was two of my mentors at LSU, or three of them. Two of them, all three of them worked the Olympics at different times. One was in the 1960 Olympics in Mexico, Dr. Marty Broussard, or whatever that Olympics we went to.
Yeah.
And he was, there. And then Kathy Osborne, who I started under, who was a head women's athletic trainer at LSU at the time, she was with USA women's basketball. So starting out, she went to the 92 Olympic team and, kind of part of the whole dream team stuff they had for women's
Yeah.
basketball back then in Barcelona. And but they showed me that. And then John Purdy went to Lillehammer, the Winter Olympics, like in '96 or whatever it was. So
Yeah.
they showed me that they just told me that, hey, go do this. It's kind of fun to do it and get involved. I didn't understand what it meant. I worked as like the '96 Olympics just to go be a general volunteer.
Yeah.
There I've traveled with I did go with the I've not worked in the Olympics as an athletic trainer, like truly work. I've been to Pan Am Games, so I did that
Uh-huh.
in 2003, I think, something like that. Got asked to be on the U.S. medical staff to do that down in the Dominican. So it just, but you don't know who you're evaluating. I had to go through the Olympic Training Center. You got to spend time giving, and there's some
Yeah.
things now you have to just value what I would tell anybody. Just go get and meet people. I mean,
Yeah.
I go like I started going to Boston, and granted, I was asked to come up there because I could bring students up there. It's just a great experience. I knew people up there. A friend of mine who I'd met at the Olympic Training Center, and we worked the Pan Am Games. Chris Toronto's is a medical coordinator, did it for 40 something years there. Um, and we come up, hey, come up. And another friend of mine's like, yeah, I'll come up. And, just by chance ended up being in 13 with a bombing. And, but I'd always had an interest in emergency medicine. So it's not like something I didn't just,
Yeah.
from years I've had that, been dual credentialed, as an EMT and
Yeah.
always enjoyed it, but just doing more. I started doing the events, and when I started my company, really started doing some. I've done a bunch of them, but just started doing these different events and
Yeah.
start gauging it out. So that's really
Yeah.
where we do a lot now. We had events last year in 5 states and trying to grow that and among other stuff as well. But yeah, it just I get to meet a lot of neat people. Like I go to Boston. Probably this last year was probably my last year doing it,
Hmm.
and one, it's expensive. So when I was at LSU, they could pay for it, but now
Yeah.
it's part of what I bring students up, so it's a learning
Yeah.
experience versus, that's an expensive hobby to go.
Yeah.
It's like going to ride in Mardi Gras. Not it shouldn't
Yeah.
relate to it, but to go up there is
No, that's a
expensive.
good analogy. Yeah.
When rooms are $300 a night, you can't find anywhere in Boston,
Yeah.
and you're going just to go work your tail off. I mean, I
Yeah.
enjoy it because I get something new every time from people I get to meet, but
Yeah.
also what I see in like I'm in ICU working there, working with other folks, learn something new, with a little trick here and there. And I always
Yeah.
bring back, or I'm a little bit more observant of stuff than I had been when I'm working an event now. So, and we bring it back into practice. So,
Yeah.
it's just how to constantly evolving
Yeah.
different stuff. So yeah, so I do different events.
Oh,
I'm now doing cheerleading and dance stuff. I hadn't done that
that's
in a long,
big.
so I was there yesterday or over the weekend in New Orleans for a cheerleading championships and like but it's just different stuff. My schedule changed for my work during the week
Yeah.
to like tomorrow I start a wheelchair tennis tournament here in Baton Rouge that we've been doing. I've been medical coordinator for probably close to 10 years now, I guess.
Hmm.
I'm guess it is. But I'm doing that for 2 days, and then our company's covering that for us the week. And
Hmm.
then we leave to go to Chicago for 2 full days. And then I fly back in at midnight, and I have to be in New Orleans for a big volleyball tournament that I'm working for the 3 days.
You're
So I
done.
get like 4 hours of sleep, and it's like 700 teams and stuff like that. So, and then I'll come back in, and then we got to rinse and repeat a little bit. So,
Right, just like
but
Purdy had the foresight, and I'm sure Jim and the other mentors that we had saw it coming. Do you foresee in the future where athletic training is headed, going, maybe a couple topics, maybe a couple heads up that, and again, it's not to say you're Nostradamus, but just do you see some things that maybe our current students could kind of have a heads up for in terms of the evolution of the field on on a lot of levels, high school, college, pro, just any kind of insight that you have?
well, I think one is it's with any school, it's with any programs now. It's not just athletic training. It's every if you're in grad school now, you're there
Hmm.
for a reason. It's the evolution to get a higher paying job or do some other stuff as
Hmm.
well. That's been going on for some time. I think from athletic training, I mean, it's evolving. Have a it becomes not so much having the niche area, but
Hmm.
people are getting specialized. Just know that you can specialize yourself out of a job too
Mm.
much. I mean, I think having multiple skills is really being nimble
Wow.
is really where I think we're over looking at the profession where athletic training as an athletic trainer, I always knew that you know, I could, and this as an athletic trainer as well. If you wanted to stop doing your teaching, you can go off and do something different. Really easy transition out.
Absolutely.
I can work for Amazon. I could work for, uh, you know, the military as
Yeah.
a civilian doing being an athletic trainer to, you know, Frito Lay to
Yeah.
workplace ergonomics. All these folks,
Exactly.
former students have done that. I've know, work with, they're supporting battalion um, at the battalion level, providing as a part of their um, H2F initiative in the military, it's
Hmm.
holistic health and fitness initiative. And that's part of it. We just they military army started this. So they look at having a full comprehensive model of support to the battalion level. So that includes having an athletic trainer, having a PT, having mental health, having mental health and spiritual health and financial health and sports dietitian,
Hmm.
strength conditioning. All of those folks are part of a team, and they're just pushing this down to provide that layer of support. It's basically they are the professional athletes,
Hmm.
military. So
Absolutely. They're athletes.
and keeping them with that. So and it has nothing to do. It's just not, no one owns medicine, and that's the one thing I try to push across is like, no, your scope of practice and your licensure in your job setting, your what employee is going to dictate what you do.
Yeah.
So those are things like that.
That's really
That's
cool.
just being able to um, be adaptable is most important. One of the most important traits you have. I still say that one of the best pieces of advice I got, it was actually from John Porsche. I sat in his office one day, and I was early there for a year, but I was there for 3 years, so probably the first year. And I was young, and I'm like, well, I need to change. You got to change something. Something's got to get changed. You got to
Yes.
change it. We're always doing stuff. No, it doesn't have to change. The best change occurs when it's slow, and you don't want
Yes.
to change fast. And just keep this in
Yes.
mind for everything because it's chaotic. If I told you what's easier to know you're going to move in 6 months from now, well, it still may be difficult, and I'm saying this to you, you're watching the
Yeah.
students in class, you're going to have to move in 2 years ago, or you have to pivot, like, I got to move out of this place tomorrow. That's a very different, you move because you have to move. I mean, this
Hmm.
is, and you're making policy changes, and things haven't happened in work. So that's, just think of that from an administrative standpoint. Don't change something and be deliberate and change, know when you're changing something. Just know that, recognize when you need to actually do this. It doesn't have to occur right now. And some
Hmm.
change takes a very long time. So you have to almost, going back to what Forrest said, told me one day I wanted to go in his office, and I'm, and you know him, what you know him well. He went, "Gosh, dog at Ray Castle," he just did it, whatever. He said I came in, I'm basically griping, moan griping, not gonna
Uh-huh.
say, like that. And
Yeah.
so he's like, "Stop." He's like, "I don't want to hear this anymore." He says, "If you don't, you're gonna cut the next time you come into my office with a problem, you better have three solutions." He's like, "But this is," I said, "Stop it." He's like, "No, I'm not going to listen. Either you give me three solutions to this problem you're telling me about, or I don't want to hear it." And I really had to sit and think about that. And that probably is one of the, you know, it just it made me start to finally slow down
Yeah.
what I did and recognize, even in everything I did. One is somebody else, so I became program director. I really started to see this where I know I have to have, this is a problem. I know it's a problem. And what are my three solutions to
To
it just
everything.
has driven. So more so, I'd say here we have to do this or this, and I would go to staff and make this change, so that what ended up happening is I wasn't. It was hard to make some changes because unless it's something really dramatic that you had to change, which I recognize, I don't have to make it change now. I just have to make it
Hmm.
down the line. But I look at the thing. I want to bend light,
Yeah.
and I'm like, you can't, you know, and where this may, I know that's going to take, it's not where I want, it's not as fast as I want it to go.
Hmm.
But if I can make that change, I know that if I move this here, you saw it a little move, what's going to happen if I stay in that path, that light slow turn, it's not here. You can't really see the change. It's now take this back and you do the same thing every day for five
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
You're really over here.
Yeah. It's like
So
compound interest.
everything is exactly
Yeah.
you know,
That's
take
really cool.
put $1 away. You don't see it, but when you see
Yeah.
it over time, and these are just policies you have to put in place. So that's where I kind of took I learned is when I left Southern Miss, I wanted to be the best program director. I want to be the best program. I'm, going back to this, you know, beating my chest, so to speak. And I realized I didn't as well. But so when I went to came to LSU, I'm like, I'm going to learn. I learned from that, and I'm like, it's not about being the best. It's about being consistent, and it
Yes.
has nothing to do with anything. Just be consistent and work through these processes and build process. Just build repeatable mechanisms that you do every day, and from there, you can't get good until you know you're consistent. I
Yeah.
mean, you really can't You don't know what something is until it's actually you can show
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And people could be, or things can be consistently inconsistent,
Yeah.
and which you don't know what's going to happen, which is
Yeah.
very kind of scary to do.
So
But
for the students, when you're growing, when you're younger and you hit a growth spurt, if you took a picture of yourself every day, you would probably not notice a change. But if you did a before and after of a year, you
yeah,
see that difference. And so, I love that point about
yeah,
consistency because it applies to different genres. Consistency with exercise, consistency with lifestyle, consistency just one day at a time, and you get up, you do it, and the next day you get up and you do it again. And you may not see that change day by day, but in long periods of
yeah.
time, those changes will be
You know,
measurable.
this is kind of the funny thing, and I laugh about this because somebody asked me. I worked with somebody who I've not seen probably about 15 years, and the and I worked another athlete trainer this weekend, this event, and she will meet an athlete trainer that I knew way back when. It's like, oh, like when I was with you, and
Uh-huh.
I was known to yell at times, probably, in doing this. And so I learned that I just learned not to be a don't yell. And I did that early on, and you caught probably the tail end side of where I wasn't doing that.
Yeah, I don't remember
Um,
you being a yeller.
yeah, but I did
Porsche
though
was the yeller.
before then. Oh yeah, before then. And they laugh about it because they're like, yeah, he would yell at dudes, and they were like, what? And just, she was telling somebody else, she's like, it's like I've never heard him get above 5 decibels ever, and she's known me
Yeah.
work. I was like, this doesn't happen. I'm like, just being consistent, and I'm incredibly humbled when I hear that, because I was that years ago, but I stopped
Yeah.
doing it, but now. when I if I do raise my voice a little or have a different inflection, it really has like, okay, then something was like
Then you
he's
know
really
it
mad.
has meaning behind it, versus
Yeah,
other people who raise their voice for everything, and then you never know if it's really an emergency or, in other words,
exactly. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
equity, it's voice equity. A couple more points before we close it up, and
Yeah.
you probably get asked standard questions in your position, advice for resumes, advice for interviews, but I would love for you to dig deep. And is there anything that's just really unique from your perspective that you look for that's not the traditional on your resume do or do not, or on an interview do or do not? I love to just kind of
I
go
love
in
this question.
deep.
This is I love this question because this is something I've talked with interns over stuff like this.
Uh-huh.
And I'm gonna say this is something that I learned. You probably heard me say this before. I can make you smarter, but I cannot undo stupid. And
Mm,
that's something that if you want to don't if you want to show up late for work, if you want to not follow, you know, people have different processes for job wise. You don't have to agree with it, but you have to confine. You can't just go, I'm gonna do whatever and whatever. No, there's a reason for that, and understand why you may not like it is what a process is. So just know that if you're going to go past that, and I'm not talking, those are just doing something that you're like, do something you're trained to do and do it well. So just that's the base side of it. So I don't look at whether, they know this. Nobody really asks, well, do you know how to evaluate a knee and do,
it's true.
or a spine in, you're coming out of a program. It has nothing, and this is universal. This has nothing to do with athletic training. It has everything to do, like, training's training. You'll learn on the job stuff. There are different systems you go through. It is, are you a problem solver or a problem creator?
Wow.
That's the number one question that when people ask me, and I tell them, if I'm giving them a reference and I'm talking to them, then this is who I'm talking to. The person's calling me. I'm like,
Yeah.
we look at one question: is this person a problem creator or a problem solver? I ask, that's one question. That's number one question. Number two is, are they a good person? Do you help? I mean, are you? Is there anything out? Is there anything out there that they're aberrant? Just really off the wall type stuff, behavior. Are they consistent? Um, how do they handle working with others? And how do you handle? How are they organized?
Hmm.
And Grant, I'm not going to sit here and say I was at times I'm unorganized doing stuff, but I've gotten better looking at really process this. You got to put things in, and I look at most stuff as a project. So, like, one of the things we're moving to is, instead of just having a planning meeting, we have a project management system within this new app we're going to. But also, even though last year I've learned is looking at, there's a book called The 12-Week Year, which is a really
Uh-huh.
good book. And while we're trying to push this into our company and move into that, it's really hard to do that. But it put us into a mindset of really focusing on 12 weeks. We have a big goal for the year, but you can't get there, and you don't go from one to here. So look at 12 weeks that's digestible, and you put that plan in, and at the
Hmm.
end of March, we're going to come back and we're going to look and see where we are in terms of our goals and our objectives, different areas. Have we done this? Have we not done it? Here, we got just executable,
Hmm.
with that. Those are things that are, I
Do you
think they're probably
notice
most important.
any consistencies with people that you interview? So like you're the interviewer. Do you kind of already know who's number one and the interview is just to make sure that they align, or do the interviews literally, hey, you might, the stocks may change. Well, as an interviewer, what are some things that you kind of find that's
Yeah.
consistent between interviewees, or is it like a box of chocolates?
Well, people are like, what's your strengths and what your weak? I hate that question. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
just don't even, just how you are know that you're nervous, know that you're doing this well. So, Jim Murphy, who I worked with, he was at McNeese for a long time, and
Hmm.
I worked with, he was my supervisor before I came over to work at USL. He told me point blank one time, he's like, just in very different words, but he said, he said, do you want that job? And so, and he knew I knew he knew Porsche well, but didn't know how well. He's like, okay, the job's 95% yours. Just don't go screw up the last 5%. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, if you're going to an interview, it's 95% yours. You have to know that. You're getting an interview. It should just be yourself. Be authentic. Just, if you don't know something, don't try to fumble through it. Just say you don't know it. It's okay to not know that. People want to know that you don't
Yes.
know everything. We don't like to know it all. I mean, nobody likes to know it all. So it's over,
Why would they like it? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the other side is like from a hiring standpoint,
Uh-huh.
I'm hiring somebody that I want that person to be better than me in something.
Mm.
Now, I mean, my goal is hopefully that they're, I had one of my best assistants that worked with me when I was at LSU. I'm like, you need to leave. I told her that. I'm like, and I was like, because you're not going to get, you are, because of the system, you're not
Mm-hmm.
going to get paid your value.
Mm.
Nobody, it's just not going to happen. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm just telling you that. I was like, I want to pay you more, but I don't have that
Yeah.
capability no matter what. I'm like, if you're going to do that, you need to leave, and I fully support you doing that. I don't want
Yeah.
you to leave, but eventually, she eventually left for a couple of years and it came back and stuff. But those are things you have to value that
Yeah.
and know that there's what you're worth and what your value is. I mean, it's not, you don't say, oh, your work, there's a difference in invaluable and not, it's not, not unattainable value versus
Yeah.
not worthless. I mean, being
Yeah.
worthless. So what your worth is what your set pay is, and because of industry standards or whatever else it does. But then your value is where you once you get there,
Yeah.
because those of you I can say as for athletic trainers in school, you don't get caught up in all this stuff that you hear about, the salaries across the country and stuff like that, where that's a big hot topic right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because some of the best jobs may not, you look at your cost of living index, and
Mm.
because it looks, a $70,000 job is not a $70,000 job. Not,
Yeah.
there are no two the same. And some will put you in a position that are not good because they don't have good people. They're there, but the
Yeah.
environment's toxic. You got to do your
Yeah.
research,
Yeah.
and who the people are, and are they grounded, and do they have similar, do they have a similar belief system, or your beliefs are? You don't want to go in somewhere where it's just completely toxic environment.
Gotcha. The
And
last the the
for
last
for
thing,
yourself personally, or for
yeah,
others personally or professionally.
yeah.
So
The assignment Dr. Castle gave everybody, I'm going to email because he took his time. I
yeah,
love this assignment. Um, but I do want to ask you just, this is a personal question from where we came to with Porsche, where if you were 15
yeah,
minutes early, you were still late, which was
yeah.
kind of one extreme. And then at Southern Miss, it
And I'm
was like,
still late, so
one
I'm still
o'clock
kind of
ish,
late. Yeah,
we start
yeah.
where in your experience, do you have I don't want to say a preferred, but is there, that being in two different extremes is somewhere in the middle more reasonable? But if they say the meeting starts at 1 from a leadership standpoint, or from a, what's your take on how we came from the USO athletic training room and maybe some others?
Well, I think just mainly being prepared. Things happen, and be show set your clock a couple minutes early. Just
Yeah.
be there, because when
Yeah.
it starts, it
Yeah.
starts. I mean, the time
Sure.
block. Well, I think you just have to be. You don't want to be consistently late. It's just disrespectful for others. It's like
Yes.
you're not back. Just like if I'm on a call, this is one of my biggest pet peeves, and is for athletic trainers, is that, or for anyone, is that I'd like to schedule time. Like we did this here. I put it on a calendar because I'm gonna that you're this is the priority. It's not here. Oh, I'm gonna get a call right now. Hang on, everybody. I'm gonna take this call. I
Yeah.
mean, it
Yeah.
just doesn't. It's just like doing treatment
Yeah.
for somebody. Put the
Yes.
phone down unless it's a
Yes.
dire emergency. You need to,
Yes.
you answer that. but just you're be in the moment for that person you're treating
Yeah.
and the person, and don't, or if you're talking to someone and taking a call and you're sitting there and you're waiting, that aggravates that. I'll walk away. I'm
Be
like,
in the
okay,
moment.
whatever. Yeah,
Be in the moment.
there's a point to just let them know that it's not the thing. It just, what it tells me is you devalue what my time is with you
Wow.
versus otherwise. And it's
Wow.
just, people don't realize
Yeah.
that. I'm like, my time, you're valuing doing something versus taking a treat, call, whatever. Just have to
Yeah.
put it on silent for 15, 20 minutes. It's just,
Yeah.
you prioritize it. And over time, it becomes a habit. So I think
Yeah.
that's the one thing that, and things come up and stuff like this and trying to plan
But
out.
but to your point is that even if the meeting doesn't start at 1, you're prepared for it to start. That's the key, is just being prepared so that if the meeting starts on time, you're ready. And if it doesn't, you're ready. And if it starts early, you're ready. Just be prepared.
Do that as well. So
Yeah.
I think that, and just having, I would say this, the one thing that you mentioned, that you asked us earlier, is that the one thing that I saw, like I would see for student, if you can't handle your daily, your person, like your scheduling, and you're
Hmm.
disorganized, then that doesn't take long to see that I'm like, yeah, they can't handle other stuff. I mean,
Mm.
you know, just basic stuff. And, you know, again, get up out of bed, get dressed, dress professionally, look the part, act the part. You know, I did that like after COVID. My wife, the day we had to actually start back teaching class again, I get up and got up early and told my wife, "Hey, I love you. I'll see you. I'm going to work." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "I'm going to work." So every day at 6:30, 7 o'clock, 5:30, I'd still go walking outside, do exercise
Yeah.
instead, because I couldn't go work out at
Yeah.
gym. Do that. I'd come in, take a shower, have coffee, eat, and then I would put my slacks on and I put my dress shoes on. And that morning I got up and did that. It was still like 7 o'clock, whatever. And she was getting ready to get up, but hadn't got up yet. And I'm like, and my office was here in my front of our house. And I walked in, it's like, I'm going to work. I gotta feel like I'm at work. This is going to be
Yeah.
a grind.
Yeah.
So I had to
Yeah.
dress that part. So
Yeah.
always, dress above versus below somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just journal things, have
Yeah.
shirt tucked in, things like
Yeah.
this, because it's appearance. I mean,
Yes.
doesn't make it like, you could be in ragged out, whatever, doesn't make you
Yeah.
any less of a clinician, but the appearance thereof,
Yes.
it
Yeah.
comes in doing that.
Yeah.
So, and then just how put
Yeah.
treat people well while you're at work. I mean, you may have other stuff going on, but don't make your problems their
Leave it at the
problems,
door. Yeah.
or like their grief, my grief. And I've learned a lot of that last couple of months, but like, look, your grief is not my grief I'm dealing
Yes.
with. So you don't
Yeah.
need to,
Yeah.
don't try to equate that, something like
I,
that. So,
I'll leave you with this story that I think you'd be proud of me, because again, you mentored me when I was working under you at USL. But when I was at Raleigh, they had 20 inches of snow. It was the most snow they had ever had. And I took ice bags and wrapped my shoes and I treaded through snow. I'm from Delcom,
yeah,
Louisiana. I didn't see snow in my life. And I was at the training room and nobody was there. And they were like, "Why would you even come in? It snowed 20 inches." And I was like, "I don't think y'all understand where I came from. Like, you find a way to get there." Like, there was no, it never even
yeah,
dawned on me that treatment might have been canceled. It was, I got to be
yeah,
there at
going,
6 o'clock. I don't care that it snowed. I will
yeah,
not be the
yeah,
only person that may not be there. It was just entrenched in my brain. Find a way.
yep. That's good stuff. You can't. I mean, you do what you got to do. Some things you don't like to do, but you got to do them anyway.
You got to do it.
So I
Well,
don't like
listen.
the accounting stuff. So I don't want to say something real quick
Yeah,
to
yeah.
everybody.
Please,
So
please. I just
about
didn't
the
want to take
whole.
up too much of
Oh
your
no, no,
time.
oh no.
Yes,
I've
sir.
got plenty. I have a full after the weekend. This pretty open
Awesome.
day. Is on this the assignment that I love this
Yes.
assignment. Yeah, I've always been leery about some of the assignments that as a teacher and go
Yes.
interview an instructor and go do this. And I get that. I'm like, and this is like out of the English department. Y'all probably did this. I'm like, I want to do I want to actually, I thought about doing an assignment where I'm like, oh, go interview your English instructor and tell them, and the same one, and let them understand what that is. So I didn't do that. So he's going to share it with you. So
Yeah, well, I'll read it right
several
now.
months ago, several months ago,
Uh-huh.
so I was, my wife and I are good friends, are one of our close friend, our couple. The part we were on vacation with them, and they very successful in the investment world. I mean, they really. I'm not going to mention the name or the company, but
Uh-huh.
they do well, you know, in terms
They got
of
some compound interest going on.
oh yeah, a lot of it, and it got successful. He's like, well, what do you listen? We're talking about podcasts. I'm like, oh, this and that, and I'm starting a podcast. He's like, well, you ought to go listen to this podcast called "How I Built This" by Guy Raz. So this is what the assignment is. So you're
Yep.
seeing, so I love this episode because it's about founders of large companies that, and they go through this, like they show problems they've had, like it talks about their resiliency, personal and professional, going through stuff, dealing with problem people or problems that they've dealt with, that you'll, and that happens in any sector. But also what they've done successful wise, but how they made that work. And it parallels to what you have to do work wise, like do
Yeah.
one thing, they have an idea, this is what you want to do. So he's going to share that with you. But I just love the episode, you know, it's all interviewed like we're talking about, an hour. They have an advice line. And so eventually you may be running to go
Love
into
it.
business, but it's parallel
Yeah.
to what different stuff you do. And like, for example, you know, if you are in this like Zumba, or like the founders talk about this, or a
Yeah.
Kate's Cookies, or what's it, Kurt Ainsworth with Marucci bats or
That's
Marucci
right.
Sports. So Jack, I
Yeah.
worked with LSU,
Yeah.
and he'll talk about that. Saw that, but there's some part of that company I didn't realize how. I mean, they've been bought over. They're very successful, but they taught you get this, and you start thinking about, okay, what I can do personally, like you or your own business, you want to be in this
Yes.
job sector, and just identify what that looks like in the short term. And it's just, I think y'all will enjoy it. It's a lot, you know, from that to Raising Cane's. I know y'all been to Cane's. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, Todd
Absolutely.
Graves, he talks about that story of what he didn't do, and just I think for all of them, recognize opportunities. And you
I
name it,
really
from every,
enjoyed seeing that assignment.
like, I'll say one. It's Theragun. I think it's Theragun or Therabody or whatever,
Uh-huh.
you know, the therapy gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't remember which one it is. Anyway, this guy started testing these out. He had a drill and started put him on there and started doing using a drill, like electric drill. And
Uh-huh.
that's how he started
That was his
prototyping. And
prototype. Yeah.
it was, but he also installed it. I never knew this from a therapeutic standpoint. It says 40 hertz is the optimal, their
Like resonant
percussion,
frequency. Yeah.
resonant frequency. That's the therapeutic level for everybody. I'm like, what? I've never even heard that. And I've taught rehab, I've taught modalities.
Uh-huh.
It's just this level. And he had a problem. And, you know, each of us will have a problem, either personally or professionally. And we've got to overcome that problem and make it, you got to figure out how it becomes an opportunity. So just, I think y'all are going to enjoy this. It's a little couple questions I have to ask, but it's well worth. I think y'all are going to enjoy it. Just pick one of those episodes. They have 700 plus episodes, so it goes back. But I picked on it. I'm addicted to it, so that's what
Very
I
cool.
listen to. That's the one
Because
thing I
there's so
listen to,
many
because
things that carry over to,
it's about, and everybody who, I think you listen to those CEOs, they've sold their companies over. They are truly, like, they're like your next door neighbor. You talk to them, they're just
uh,
easy. They've dealt, like, one of the reasons I listened to was also had to deal with the guy who helped create PayPal, and he worked with Elon Musk,
yeah.
and you know, all this stuff, and people get split and get they get undercut. You know, crazy stuff happens in the business world. Like, I saw one was like Kate's Cookies or whatever. Basically, had a multi-million-dollar business, and it almost got gutted out
Wow.
by two brothers, and had to start. And then now she sold the company, had to restart, and sold it twice over. as like for $500 million or something like that. Just kind of crazy. So I went to the store and looked at it. I'm like, this is pretty cool to see how, so stuff like that. So just find stuff that are that you can. It's truly. I think you'll get a lot from it. It's a lot of fun. A lot of parallels, regardless of the setting, for that. So.
Well, listen, I really appreciate your time. And, that's why I thought about the podcast format for the graduate school, because that's how a lot of people are absorbing information now. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you
And this is
you coming
this is a
on.
long form, and this is a fun long form. I mean, just those long
Yeah,
form and those short form. I do, some of those as
yeah,
well. And yeah, I'm doing the same thing as well for our podcast, trying to get that up and running. And it's fun to talk on those terms. So we get to do
absolutely.
that as well. So yeah, gotta
But listen, I appreciate you so much.
yeah.
God
And
bless. I
likewise,
hope
yeah.
everything's going okay. And I appreciate you. When I was just a stubborn, hard-headed undergraduate, you were very patient with
Wait,
me.
when you were? What are you talking about? I don't hear that.
Old habits are hard to change, my friend.
Yeah, you got to give a hug to your family. I know.
Of course,
I think was your sister down in your neck
she
of the woods?
was. She
I know.
was. She was here, but her and dad are already heading up to West Virginia. The
I
maple
saw
sap
I
is
saw
running.
a post. I was out of town. I'm like, well, you run through I-10 and don't even you got some of that as well. So
I hope all's well, brother. And
it is
thank you
good.
so much
Same
for
to you.
coming on, man. God bless.
Yeah.
Take
And
care.
y'all, in the class, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out
Thank you. I
afterwards. You
appreciate
share
you.
my contact.
Have a good one.
All right, have a good one.